that. So I figured might as well test something a little bit more difficult and not get too comfortable. And what ended up happening, and this is going to make a lot of sense if I just show you the outline. If we have something like this floor plan right here, if you start to push back even 5 feet right here on these edges, you can start to see what would happen. It would start to overlap, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's exactly what was happening. Was we had these lines right here that would overlap each other once you started to cross them. So small inconvenience, but it caused the biggest issues. And what I ended up doing was I created it in a way, and you can see it right there, so that depending on the type of departure we have on the corner, Houdini will move those actual pieces where because it builds the facades based off of lines. So it moves those actual pieces back in its own little space. Move it back too far, then it collapses and we have no corner, and Houdini will fill in the rest. So
of course, now that I'm looking at them, that balcony really wants to go around the corner.
Yeah, and that's where this middle section is. It's blank right now, but I'm going to put it to where, it'll fill in that balcony and whatever. And so having those different options between just having something flat and simple, moving up to something like this, I'm probably going to make it to where we can control that, or even maybe based off of a size requirement. Like if we only want the corner facade to be 3 feet long, it's not really going to make sense to have a balcony and a door that only takes up 3 feet. So
what I'm saying is, you have picked probably the hardest corner to figure out, and I'm sure it's fun. But you could probably do a couple of simple corners and maybe learn something from that. And as you make them more complicated, and you know a lot more for tackling this corner.
Yeah, absolutely. And part of that's on me, because I was trying to go off of reference footage, the reference picture, and I perfectionist at heart, to be quite honest. But yeah, I mean, something as simple as.
But I mean, I like the patterns in between. That's getting a lot more residential looking now.
So the patterns are actually the best part, and I showed this to Kevin and Peter a while back. I'm going to add certain controls, but each pattern, these patterns can be changed, and so we can come up with preset patterns to distinguish what kind of look we have. Like right now, I know the modules I have are this little thin line, this wall right here, and then this balcony. And so I can come in and I can say 1, 2, 3, and it will start to alternate based off of that. Or I can say 1, 2, 2, 1. And now you can start to see it updates that pattern very seamlessly. So we can come up with preset ideas. The office one is probably has a more complex pattern because it's working with 4 different modules. So I believe, I know I had this one working.
I think it might be benefiting you if you actually applied this to. So I gave Peter 10 buildings or 9 buildings now, which are part of San Bernardino, and they have real conditions. So that's what we in the end wanted to work with. If you could see how that works, that sort of like gives you the bigger picture how that app works in conjunction with, an actual application.
I see. And I'm going to guess that some of these building plans are also like you have some big, but you also have a lot of smaller ones too.
Well, they're still as big as this building that you see here. So I haven't made them really small, but I will need to make them smaller because in the downtown you want to have sort of like a walkable scale. So we'll come up with smaller buildings. But I think just to try yourself out, they're sort of like on the periphery, the outside, the outlier buildings. I would just give it a shot and see what that all looks like. And then we'll identify a whole bunch of problems. And you might also, we might learn something, how we should exchange data and, how that whole thing happens. Because in the end, Don wants to see that happen on the site.
Okay.
And I even gave you an image for this whole thing, what the massing for those buildings look like.
Okay. Well, I can start working for those then, because I know you sent that email. And I can start working off of that as I continue to build the rest of this tool.
Yeah, it's like a two-pronged approach, right? One is the integration with Bruce and with the overall model that we're producing for San Bernardino. And then it's also sort of like applying better and better skins to all the models. And the skins, obviously, you need to build, and that's why you do your jazz here. And that's where all the amazing stuff happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
It's just a
Peter
matter of
integrate some designs that Gerhard provided. We've been going back and forth and getting it down to where we can make the parts, the shapes, and the lines smart, so we can put data attributes with them. But Peter has those. I'm just wondering, like when you get to a point where you're comfortable with these different controls, if you could start working on those areas, because then it would get you both into what Bruce is doing, and as Gerhard said, it would allow us to look at some different um, textures, and maybe even Peter could test loading it maybe this weekend and go, oh, okay, now we actually have some textures in this area that we can start applying and get a little feel for. And we could even, from a preliminary standpoint, even show that to Don, and he may want to share that with the city when he sees him next week. We don't know if there's going to be time or not. So that's great. I mean, I really like this because this looks like more like the facades that Gerhard's been providing us, which are much more realistic.
More like what we see every day, right?
Well, that's a big compliment, because these are the facades that Gerhard sent me. I think earlier, either this week or late last week. All of those reference images, Gerhard.
On the top one, I would put the windows. The windows are taller than the doors. Typically, that doesn't happen in a resi building. That happens in offices, but in a resi building, if the window was a little shorter, I wouldn't necessarily make the sill, the bottom piece lower. Just make the whole window smaller. Push it down a little bit.
So Gerhard, are those glass blocks? Are those glass blocks built windows that are?
I was wondering the same thing. I mean, this was from an image where somebody that's sort of like I'm sure it's the Retro Arts District office that I gave you. It was, I think, a steel window with small mountains, but this looks almost like glass blocks now.
Yeah, they almost look like glass blocks. This here.
Well, we need to work on the details and sort of like fine tune everything, but I'm happy to see that the big pieces snap into. Yeah, see this? The door is probably, the top of the door is the same as the top of the window.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't really tell from the angle, but that's good.
And you can change.
Well, that's just because you built those 8 foot high. These floors are 9 foot high, and I know where the lintel over the door is, and it's the same height for the window.
So what's that bottom red section? Is that just entry level section for residential housing, or?
That was from that image that you had there. That's just, I don't know, utility rooms or something like that.
Yeah,
the bottom I only have the residential. I don't know if I have the office.
Maybe that's management or something. I don't know. Okay.
Oh, I do. What about that? Yeah, I gotta make some separate facades, because obviously you're not going to see balconies on the bottom floor. But
and I mean, in residential apartments, I mean, usually the management office usually isn't even there. It's somewhere else, right? It's not even in the residential building.
And normally, what Don will want to see is Don wants to see always commercial retail at the ground floor and then resi above. So whether it's not always appropriate, and in the end, we need to have a variety of skins. But the one that Don would most likely see right now is the one that has a store at the bottom and then residential above.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, that's just on me. So far, the only facades I've created is this office type and this residential type.
Yeah.
I think I made a special residential for the bottom, just so that it matches the simple balcony type.
And we may, I mean, that's great. This is an affordable housing project right there.
Yeah, and also, but the nice thing about it is if we talk about economic impact or impact of family housing, we can say, look, we can bring in, these larger buildings with multiple, rooms and so on. It's going to add to that, but it's also going to be quite large, and you're going to lose your downtown feel because
Yeah.
you're going to have giant buildings. And these are the arguments that are going to come up with San Bernardino.
Ethan, let me share something quickly.
Yeah, go ahead.
I can't. You need to let me.
Oh, sorry.
Do I do that, or do I do it? I think. Let me.
Yeah, I think you do it, Kevin.
Gerhard. Okay.
So this is sort of like what the massing looks like for those first 10 or 9 or 10 buildings that we have on San Bernardino. So this is what the shape files, just the polygons extruded themselves suggest. And the reason why I think it would be good for you to apply that is because that gives you a chance to sort of work with buildings where they turn the corner. Other places they have blank walls, right? Not all the walls are the same, and you sort of have different pieces to figure out. So I think it gives you a different reality relation when you apply your tool to this actual stuff, because something like this is we want to generate for like 50 buildings down there.
Yeah.
And I think you'll have new challenges when you work with that.
I'm already starting to see a couple challenges I may have, but I mean, they're good. They're good. They make the tool better.
I mean, I deliberately put in a round shape for you here, not because I like it, but I want to see what you do with that.
Right.
So you did that on purpose, I see.
Yes.
I admire that, Gerhard, but I will be. Hey, that's more hours for me. You know what? That's fine. That's cool.
Well, and for me, it's less making that box do all sorts of tricks. So but make simpler tools and make them work on real world conditions, and once the simple tools all work, then we can make more complicated tools and make them work on real world conditions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so far the tool user-wise, I think I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible. It's all the technical stuff, because the moment, for instance, we had a rounded wall like that, now we're changing up angles in which the vertices, the points meet. We're changing a whole bunch of stuff that I haven't worked with, and usually that does tend to complicate things. But creating the workaround, getting it to work out mathematically, that'll be my job. And once we get it, I mean, that increases the usability of this tool.
Right. I mean, what we want is a simple facade, right? That just sort of like finds comfortably its place on one of those faces of a building, right? So the windows are centered at the right height, and maybe they have a balcony. And at first, it might all just be windows, right? And so you have sort of like a corner buffer space, and then just do the whole thing like that. And then we say, hey, how about a couple of balconies, right? And then we can insert a couple of balconies and sort of like increase the level of complexity, but get the basics to run on this thing.
Gotcha. Okay then. Yeah, I can work with that.
Because that's the challenge. I mean, Dan will be tickled pink, once he sees this thing emerge. And his thing is that he wants the buildings to rise and fall with the data, right? So if we can have simple buildings that rise and fall with the data, so I did basically these 3 areas here on the left, right? 3 blocks.
Yeah.
This is still a little smaller, but I made them maybe a little more complicated, but not that much. It's pretty much still what it is.
So what we're looking at, Ethan, is manipulating in color schema like this in Bruce, and then bringing in higher resolution, bringing in your buildings for a much higher resolution view, and then even getting to the point where we might even have some close-up views of the kind of all the 3D objects that were presented originally by GGLO. So we're getting there. We're getting like the loadability is fast now with the key things we want, including I'm just waiting for this to load here. This takes forever. This is the one thing that takes a long time, is this giant, all those objects. See?
Whew, yeah.
It doesn't take that long, but it's a lot of 3D objects. And it
Well,
just,
even when I exported this into CAD, there was a shitload of stuff that I needed to delete. There's so much crap in there.
it's as noisy as can be.
But I mean, in the end, we'll need that stuff. So Ethan, the way I see this app to work is that we have sort of like a level LOD 1 or 2 from a distance, from an aerial view, where all the data run. But then we can, like in Google Maps, sort of dive into Street View, and then, you are full on with all the jazz you can provide. But then we only see 1 or 2 buildings, not everything.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
No, I exactly know what you mean. And that's what I was saying. Like right now, if Don said for some reason we need buildings tomorrow, I could probably get us a LOD 2, maybe 3, depending on what we exactly want. It's just elevating that, getting green roofs, getting all the pretty stuff that I know we tried to pull off in the first version of the tool.
Well, make yourself a task list. If you could generate an LOD 1 or 2 from those shapes that you get either from me or you get them through Bruce, from Peter, maybe that's the way to grab those shapes. And then you generate a simple massing model right away. And then you generate a simple massing model with green roofs. And
Yeah.
then you generate a little bit more, and then you sort of like start working on those more higher level details for each.
Yeah, and that's I mean I'm working on a priority basis right now. Like getting these walls and getting the corners to work have been my priority, just because they rely on each other inside of the 3D modeling tool. Getting step backs have been a priority. Getting um, making the sections, the height, like all of that have been priority right then. And then I'm going to move on to what's next. Green roofs are usually what we continuously want to see. Parapets, all kinds of that different stuff. So I am working off a priority chain, and I'm making
Yeah.
sure that what I'm working on right now gets as much attention and love as it possibly can.
Yeah,
Because
you
I think
need
that's
to
what
always
happened last
consider,
time is we just kept throwing stuff in there, and what would end up happening is that sections of the tool would get neglected. And
well,
then the
work on
error.
it in the priority list that you hear from Don, right? He always wants to see green roofs, so that's very
Yeah.
important, right? He doesn't really care that much about the building elevation, so that's more for us and more for the general public in the end when they look at it. But we still need to do it, but it's not the first thing we need to do. We need to get a basic LOD 1 or 2 with the buildings rising and falling and the data changing, and then green roof. That will be the second thing.
Absolutely. I could not agree more, Gerhard.
And that way we keep him happy and we still accomplish everything. We just don't accomplish it along a different path than we would maybe pursue.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in the end, everyone's going to be really happy with everything. The modeling tool with Bruce.
Yes, I agree. Hey, Peter, have you imported these shapes already? Is Bruce taking them? And can you make simple buildings out of the stuff that I sent you?
So Peter had to jump on the GeoTel call, but he's gonna jump on that after this call. He's gonna start bringing your data in. So
And just see what happens with that.
yeah,
There's
definitely.
so many decisions to be made. Right now, this still treats it as if every block was a building, right? I'm trying to break it down into sort of large properties, but maybe we in the end have to break it down into even smaller properties. And we just need to get this thing down and get it to be able to change it quickly.
Yeah.
Like
I
if
mean,
we have a meeting with the city and the city says, hey, these properties are all too big, we want to see more variety, then I need to go back, divvy them up differently, send it to Peter, boom, off it goes, right? Everything gets generated.
yeah. The key thing is flexibility and the ability to make changes. And so, we had to do it incrementally. Ethan, you weren't really involved in that, but Gerhard originally gave us certain files. They were tested. Then we got another set of files. I mean, we've got all these different data sets now that we're working with, testing files,
Okay.
different file sets that Gerhard's giving us so we can figure out how to create entities in Bruce so they become smart, so we can attach financial information to them economic information. So if we do have these arguments over economics, we can change these buildings on the fly, and we can change the economics. Say, fine, you want a downtown, walkable city look. You don't want a whole bunch of big buildings, maybe just one or two tall buildings, and that's it. This is how it's going to impact this. The value of the construction of this dropped by 70% if you just make a small building that looks like, one of these little guys or whatever.
Yeah.
So
the whole point is not to make one model that's static and everybody oogles over it, but to make a tool that allows us to change it very quickly and often, and still make it look reasonably good quickly.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And that's where Don wants to use the tools. You can make rapid changes. So we're out there making rapid changes because we're having these meetings. And then now we're creating, okay, we understand now what you want. You want this, like this walkable city look, but you do want a couple of office buildings in there to sort of break up the building view. We can do that. We can create it. Like in the past, when you had to do that, you had to have all kinds of meetings. And here we're going to be able to do it with a tool. So the realization of what Don has been talking about is using these technologies to accelerate these decisions so we can get to a better place together with especially with PlaceWorks and all the other players. So it's all
in the past you needed to maybe go back to the architect and they design something, and then the renderers get involved, and a week later you have another image that has done all that stuff, right? What Don wants is, and then somebody does an economic impact analysis, and then somebody does a traffic study, and then somebody looks at sustainability and displacement. And what Don wants is to have a tool that can do all that on the fly as we're making changes.
Exactly.
And the visualization is just sort of like the icing around all that, so people can visualize what decisions are being discussed.
Yeah, it just helps you make better. It helps you make better decisions. Right now, there is no road that goes through this place, right? Like
no, there's nothing.
There's no road that goes through this. This is where it is, right?
Turn the model off so Ethan can see it.
Yeah, just to give you some perspective, Ethan. So this is what it looks like.
Right now.
Let me turn that off. This is what it looks like right now. And this, like, remember we talked about this, Ethan? This will probably be a permanent structure right here because it's a parking.
Yeah.
And there's like another building here that's probably going to stay.
Yeah, that one. And the rest gets flattened.
The rest gets flattened. But the question is, are you going to take this road here and connect it? Does that make sense? Does it make sense to put a road through here? Is the master planner, the city planning consultants, going to recommend that? Are they going to say, no, we want this to be this, an oasis in the middle of the city, right?
Well, the master planner is right now PlaceWorks, but we want to be the master planner because we suggested a framework. And it baffles me to no end that we are not putting that together into one cohesive.
Well, we might after next week. So after we, so Ethan, what Don's doing now is he's negotiating the developer agreement with this. The city basically hired him to be the developer, right? ICO and run. They didn't hire. They felt they're visionaries, so they'll be sensitive to quality development. So that's probably why they hired him. They just had a better feeling about what he thinks where their integrity lies. But in the end, there's going to be a master plan for the whole city that's done by a company called PlaceWorks that will impact what has to be built here. And so there's some major questions in terms of the ideas and the designs, and that's where you and your Houdini controls and the Bruce tool and all those come into play.
And what that means to us is whatever we build, we will have to change often.
Yeah, we're gonna have to make a bunch of changes, and we're not gonna have to spend huge amounts of time and hours. Hours and people and everything else to affect those changes. We're going to be able to actually, do that probably in a 24-hour period. So you'll be able to, come up with new facades and new designs based on these footprints. So all these footprints that you see on the in the plan itself are going to be, all those footprints are going to be, we'll send those to you. Those will be the base footprints, and then you're going to be building on it like we talked about, right? Like these are all going to be your footprints. Okay.
Yeah. And each one will have a bottom, middle, and top, polygon, and you just go. And it's about 50 buildings.
There we go. Okay. So I think we're good.
That'll be your challenge. I mean, Ethan, I think the first thing I would like to see you try is just take the polygons and make just an extrusion mass model that we can change the floors on. Just that, right? You just no articulation at all. We're just extruding it, and give us an interface how we can change the height of the floors and the number of floors.
Okay, so kind of like the look of like what's on the screen right now.
Right, nothing else.
Okay, I can
And then
work
the
with
second
that.
thing is, then let's figure out some roofing types, right? So make a green roof, make a mechanical roof, make a this roof, that roof, something, and let's put that on, right? So then the whole model will already look better. And then let's go after the facades after that.
Okay, so you're saying green roofs take higher priority over facades, right?
I think so. Don't you think, Kevin?
Well, it's, Don really promotes the green roofs.
Every single time.
Yeah, but he also promotes the water feature.
And the water feature.
He's constantly selling the deal to us, to
Mhm.
him, to everybody, to himself, to everyone. Everyone, he's promoting the deal to get feedback so he can get community buy-in and city buy-in and stakeholder buy-in. So I think that's going to be important. I think the green roof module, though, you've got a lot of that built already, right? I mean,
Not with this current tool. And the methods I used on the last tool were insufficient. They were constantly causing problems.
yeah.
But I have a method I've been working on. I can just revisit that. So yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll switch gears then. I'll clean up the parts of the tool that I need to just clean up this evening, and then I'll work on basic extrusions, just a simple LOD1, and then green roof, and I'll devise a green roof system. It's something I've been planning to do, and I've been looking forward to doing.
Okay, and then if you've got, we may turn around and ask you for some stuff over the weekend to put into Bruce, give some other looks, and it may turn out that Don wants to show a couple things next week, and we just want to. We may ask you, but if not, just carry on with the tasks that you've described, and then we'll circle.
Yeah, I mean it's best to be prepared, so I completely understand. I do have one question though. With these simple extrusions like we're seeing on the screen, are we wanting just straight up blocks like walls, just flat walls? Are we wanting the most basic, simple window across it? Like, what are we looking for with this?
I think the level 1 is basic simple walls, and maybe you can have a line on each floor so we can count how many floors we have.
Okay.
Yeah, almost.
And then
like
the next step is basic simple windows, but get the plank walls with lines first. So we have that.
Floor lines, blank walls with floor lines.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
okay, because
that's our LOD2 is
okay.
blank walls with
That's
color.
actually very simple. Because it uses a completely different workflow than what I'm using for the facade-based buildings, in that you just literally extrude them up and layer them in a floor-like manner. So that can be done pretty quickly.
Well, that's a look that'll be important, especially in that early planning stage where we're kicking around ideas and saying, what is $300 million? What is $200 million? Let's look at all different economic impacts, right? Let's get ridiculous. Let's look at $1 billion. It's ridiculous. There's no way they're going to approve that. Okay. Let's do 20 billion. Are they going to approve that? We're going to build the Tyrell Corporation there, make Blade Runner there? No. So we know, so that gives you the ability to make quick changes because it changes on the fly. So, and then once we get into these high quality, these facades like you just showed us, which I think are really nice, that's getting.
Yeah, they're coming along nicely.
That last 30% of changes you're going to make are when you're dealing with facades and all that, and you get down, and eventually you get down to, before you know it, you're down to your last 10% of changes, and you haven't even brought in hardly anybody. You've just been using the tool, and that's the dream functionality for getting San Bernardino done in breaking ground in less than in 18 months.
You know, and there's more on the roofs than just green. You know, I sent you some images before. Let me share quickly. You know, there's solar panels that Don wants, and there's always little stuff on the roofs, like little penthouses so you can
Mhm.
exit, and, you know, little mechanical penthouses and little boxes left and right. Let me share quickly, Kevin.
Maybe the best thing to do is have like 2 or 3 different types of green roofs, like one that's
Yes.
park, penthouse.
Yeah. You see this one here?
Yes.
So this is sort of like a mix, right? It's mostly green. It's not a real park, but it could be this. This is, I think, the Ford factory, actually. It's a real park on the roof, right? And, you know, this is a heating plant in Copenhagen that actually is a ski slope in the winter.
That's real.
That's real.
That's crazy.
Built. Yeah, I mean, the world is doing crazy things. We are not. We are sort of like very cautious and we can't afford nothing, but
Yeah.
stuff like this happens. So here, right? This is a building that has some solar panels on it, and it has green, and it has some gardens.
Well, you know,
I can show you one.
they're doing those roof gardens in Manhattan, and they
Oh,
would
yeah.
do really well in San Bernardino given the weather.
I
So,
can show you one from Berkeley. Roof garden side of it. This is a nice one in Berkeley. See this thing? This is a student dorm.
yeah.
So this stuff is happening. This stuff is real. Of course, we don't always see it down here because we're so damn cheap. We can barely build a box. But the world is doing this stuff.
Yeah. And Don wants to push this, and
Yeah.
I know PlaceWorks is very environmentally
Oh, yeah.
very into that. So I think
Well, the
those
state is requiring, in many cases, many of those things that developers don't want to do. That's why the developers always fight against it. But see that this is rooftop agriculture.
yeah, urban garden, exactly, where there's space.
Okay, so if we're trying to talk about types, I'm thinking garden/agriculture.
Which is this, and the other one is
Yeah,
just green, you know, just sort of like
like a
and
park
again,
almost.
like a park, you know, a usable park. And then you just have sort of like a mechanical roof, but it has absorbability for rain events. And, you know, it just has some sedum on it. You know what sedum is?
No.
Sedum is a very low maintenance plant.
So you got roof gardens, roof parks, and roof solar.
Yeah, this is just basically a plant that you never have to do anything with. There's all sort of like evergreen succulents and stuff up there that lives forever.
So this is pretty much like
Baseline.
contribute to the environment kind of
Right.
roof.
Right.
Okay.
And it helps, you know, it protects the membrane so the roof actually lasts longer. But this is not a usable roof. Here, this is a type from a manufacturer, right? This is the basic sedum roof. This is, you just look at that, you never go on it. This is a use that you can do some activities on, and this might be real gardening, right?
Yeah.
You have a little more dirt on it.
Would we want to do a type that's like trellises and dining or something like that too?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, rooftop dining would be. Yeah, I mean, even rooftop dining with bridge from tower to tower would be great, but I think that's too
Ooh.
ambitious.
I mean, I definitely want to tackle bridges connecting buildings at some point, but that
Let's wait.
I don't see a way to do that right now. That would take some
Well,
research.
each one of those versions is a different type, right? If you just get the basic ones and apply them properly, if we see that the application always works, then it'll always work for another one that you can develop later also. So I would maybe pick one or two right now and just figure out that it cleanly works in the app. And then later on, you can do 20 more, right? And then we have 20 more to choose from. As long as they all work the same way as the first one, they'll all function. Because I see in the end, the tool, you just go to the roof button somewhere and then come a drop-down menu and you get something to choose, right? And right now, maybe we choose only one or two, but eventually there can be 20 different ones there that we can choose from.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the whole point of this tool is that once it is finally completed, if it ever does get to its final version or whatever, I mean, we continue to build
It might never be completed.
this is fine by me.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's building a library. Building a library of different walls types of different
Yes,
rooftops.
exactly.
Ethan, are you
And
back?
right now we're just checking that the basic types function and
Mhm.
get easy and are easy to apply.
Are you
And
backing
then we
up all
expand
your
the
code?
library.
What did you
Ethan,
say, Kevin?
Are you backing up all your code? So if you ever have a system crash, we don't lose all this?
I've been planning on buying a hard drive. I can go ahead and do a hard drive, that way I have it backed up somewhere else. I have the first version of the tool backed up on a hard drive and stored away for safekeeping.
Okay.
This
If-
newer version of the tool I have not yet.
Yeah, if you could do it for this as well, and we'll reimburse you for the hard drive, but it would be definitely, I just for security reasons, we want to make sure that you store all that and have it backed up for whatever, if we get some kind of a crash, fatal crash with the system, we don't want to lose all this work you did. So
Absolutely.
What I do, Ethan, I have a couple of NAS, network attached storage devices. And, every so often, once a week, I do a file sync. I don't have a proper backup program. I just have a file sync to the NAS, copy it all over and basically echo whatever I have locally over to that NAS and then turn it off. So even if anybody hacks you online, they can't get to the device because the device is off.
Oh.
Just saying. I'm old.
no, it's
I mean,
we're just
file backup is
It's a huge deal.
That's 101. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen too many heartbreaks and had a couple of my own to
Yeah.
not take that seriously.
Yeah, and the NAS these days costs you like about $100. And
Okay.
a 2 terabyte NAS will probably cost you about $150.
it's like buying a little insurance.
Yeah.
And what is it? What does the NAS stand for again?
Network attached storage. If you buy yourself, but just buy yourself a solid state hard drive. But if you have a network attached storage.
Okay.
It's sort of like a mini file server that does nothing but exist. Basically, it does everything that you normally do on a file server.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I'll take a look at it.
Peter just joined us. Hey, Peter.
Gerard, I need you to look at the data that you sent me. Are they polygons or they're polylines again?
Well, they should be closed polygons in AutoCAD.
It's not. It comes out as polylines.
Well, that's a problem. Why would that be?
Yeah, but I can fix it. It's just that I just want to give you a heads up. I have to go through one by one to kind of close
All of them or just one?
No, all of them.
Well, that's weird because they should be, the idea would be that I give you polygons and you just grab them as a whole.
Correct. And unfortunately, I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about here. So at least you know exactly what.
Are you talking about the buildings or are you talking about
the building? The building outlines that you sent me. The newest one.
They are not polygons, huh?
Yeah, this is the one I had to convert to polygon. If it's a polygon complete bounding, it just gives you this.
It shows up as a shape, huh?
Yes, exactly. If it's not, it will give you this. So the property is, they'll tell you it's a simple line.
What are you exporting it out as, Gerhard?
I haven't exported them at all. I give him AutoCAD straight.
Yeah.
Huh.
So
I mean, maybe we test a couple of export formats.
Right, because if I give this lines to Ethan, he probably has to close the loop.
Yeah, no, that shouldn't happen. I mean, we need to find a way where you can just grab this stuff.
All right, yeah. So
and then as a line, does it have attributes? Does it actually have a name attribute?
I think it does. Let's see.
Every single one is just lines.
Every one seems to be a line. Let me see if I can find one. I turn everything.
That's a problem.
Yeah, it's multiple lines on top of each other, so that's a problem. Yep. There's no information attached to it.
Well, I think the export that I have is IGES and DXF. So let me send you either one.
Yeah. If you can do that, I can take a look at it. So
just to test.
Yeah, just to test. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean the data looks good. I mean there's multiple on top. It's all labeled properly, so it's not a big deal. See, building 3 through top, and just kind of goes from there. So
yeah, let me share for a second. I'll show you what that looks like on my side.
Okay, here we go.
Here, can you see that?
Yep. I see
If I click, okay, hold on, frozen right now. See, polygon,
So I wonder if the properties on the
Polygon.
export.
polygon, everything's a polygon.
If you right click on it, is there a property on it? Yeah.
Well, the properties are just whatever AutoCAD has here. But
Yeah.
I mean, the layer name would be what it is. It's building
is.
11.1, which is, you know, correlates to the property 11.1 top. That would be the top shape. And then there's a lower shape, that's the middle shape, and that's the lower shape.
Right. So those are the ones. So that's the reason why I want to see the property. Whether if you right click on it and see the property, the geometry, there's one layer called the geometry. Yeah, you can actually, scroll down a little bit. I think there's miscellaneous. No, see at the bottom, it's not closed. The last bit under miscellaneous.
What if I just say yes?
Then it's a polygon.
Well, maybe I need to do that for all of them.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's just an open-ended one.
This says closed, so do you have that? I didn't just close
No,
it.
that means it's called a polygon. If you say close, means it will actually close off every vertices within a polygon.
Right, but I did not close it now manually. It was that way, and it says closed here.
Yeah, but
Is
the
that
other one was
actually a closed shape for you in your program? Did it translate that, or is it still
it
lined?
translated as an open. So we click another polygon. Like another color one. Yeah, and you look at the same thing. The properties are miscellaneous. It
says closed. No. So if I close it, but
then you'll make a polygon out of it.
But what I was just telling you is this one.
Yeah.
I did not close here now.
No, you just closed it.
Is that the one? I thought that I closed.
That's the one that you closed. Yeah, that's the one you didn't close. Yeah, you click on that one, it will say not closed. Yeah.
Closed? No. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe that's the first thing I do. I go through all of them, make sure they're all closed.
Yeah, then you send it to me, then it would be so much easier. Then I don't have to do one by one to close it.
And then the second thing is I will send them to you as a DWG file, as a DXF file, and as an IGES file.
DWG file is fine. I can work with it.
DWG is fine? Okay.
Yeah.
Well then, I mean, closing this is not a big deal.
Yeah.
I just need to know that all these steps need to be taken. That's the key.
I know. I hear you. That's the reason why when I look at it, is open-ended. So the other one, the reason why is what? Because when if it's closed, then we can extrude it. If it's not closed, we don't know how to extrude the building height.
Okay.
Yeah. I hope that makes sense.
Totally. I mean, I want to get to a clean geometry transfer so we can talk between the different programs without any labor involved along the way.
Correct. Yeah.
We're going to give you 10 commandments, Gerhard. Moses is going to walk.
No, I mean, listen. Every project has that. You know, normally this was called a POMP plan. You know, project organization and management plan, where companies lay down the law how everybody interacts with the master model, because this is a master model process. And this is serious stuff, you know. This is not child's play. People dismiss that all the time, but that's more important than actually build stuff afterwards, figuring out how they all relate.
I'm glad you brought it up, Gerhard. Kevin and I had this discussion about PlaceWorks. If they are the lead, not developer, planner, don't they kind of dictate exactly how the buildings will be designed and planned?
Yes.
Do we follow them, or they would collaborate with us? Which one is?
Well, that's what we need to talk about, and that's what we need to talk about.
Okay.
I think it's a nuanced answer, because their delivery isn't until like the beginning of summer next year, right? Like that's when they're supposed to deliver their recommendations. Believe it or not, like literally a year from now. And at least that was in their PowerPoint that I sent to everybody. So what is that going to be? In other words, what are their recommendations going to be? And that's a huge question. And our plan, though, is probably going to be not done the same way. It's a much smaller area, but it's going to be I guess it's going to have to be mixed with their ultimate recommendation to make sure that everything is consistent. And that's
Well, we
the big
want them
question.
to sort of like adopt many of the things that we have suggested, right? We want them to sort of adopt mostly the street plan that we had suggested. We probably want them to adopt mostly the building heights that we have suggested, and there will be a lot of community outreach involved with sort of like making people accept all that, right? And then there's detail to that. How wide are the streets? What does the street consist of? I remember I sent you this program once that said, how many drive lanes do you have? How many parking lanes? Where is the bike lane? How wide is the sidewalk? Blah, blah, blah. All that stuff needs to be determined because it doesn't exist. It's just a parking lot right now.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a good question, Peter, that we don't really know the answer to. But what we want to do is go with whatever the GGLO/Gerhard design schemas are now and build the product around that and start making changes based on that, but knowing that we may have to go back and make a totally new one.
And the best thing would be to connect with Placeworks pretty quickly and get their input too, and sort of like get a hybrid version for both of us that we can then refine with the community. But they need to either buy into our scheme or we need to buy into their scheme and make one combined scheme out of it for this thing to really make sense. Otherwise, Dan doesn't have an influence in what the city will be, and he just has to accept somebody else's parameters now. And I don't think that's what he had in mind.
No, definitely. And maybe when they negotiate the development agreement, that's going to be in there, right? Like ultimately, because that's what Lou was saying is he thinks Don and Gian are going to ask for, the ability to make recommendations for the zoning that affects that area, the zoning and the rules that affect.
Well, Dan wants to write the zoning as a physical document, that in narrative sort of establishes setbacks and facade types, and you've seen those form-based zoning categories. But we still have to lay out the physical place. We have to determine where is the street, how wide it is, and where are the buildings.
Yes, exactly.
And that's sort of like not something that either Placeworks should do alone or we should do alone. We should do that all together with the city, with Placeworks, and maybe with the community. Everybody needs to buy into that.
Yeah.
Where is the river, right? How deep is the river? How wide is the river?
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, I still can't believe that we don't have a dialogue with Placeworks yet.
But well, there was one presentation, right, that you set up, right?
And that was just sort of like an intention to collaborate and be nice to each other.
Yeah, an agreement to be friends. It was like a first date.
Right.
Or, you guys met at the same place or something. And,
right, that's what it was.
You sort of just had a little, get together to find out who the players are. But if you look at, here is the, I'm turning on right now the Placeworks, the actual plan, right? Or the presentation they made. It's pretty straightforward, but if you look into this, right, first of all, the team, there's a lot of
Woody is a friend of mine. I don't know Brian Judd. I know Wendy. I know Alexa Washburn.
Yeah.
Keep going to the next page.
And then they have.
I know Alan Loomis, their design lead. I know Mark Hoffman, and I know Karen Gully. I mean, we could talk to them like right away, except I don't want to do it unless Dan sort of like is behind it.
Yeah, and they have a climate adoption and resiliency lead. So all that stuff you and I have talked about with climate modeling, I'm sure she'd be interested. But if you can look at, their relationships and who they, how they do their thing, see all their outreach. Look at they're having everyone over. They're having a carnival.
And Dan thinks he has one person now who will do that for him, who is a superstar.
Yeah, and then they got, you see how they're doing the charrette design ideas, kind of old.
Right.
And then all the different codes and plans they want. But the most important thing for me, as I read through this, they had the overview. they talked about the downtown specific plan overview. And
right,
that's
and Don needs to engage in that, otherwise he has no influence in it.
right. And this, look what they're doing. Their plan, this is Peter, this is exactly what we want to model.
Yeah.
This area
That's
right
it.
here, what we
Yeah.
want Fu to make.
Yeah.
So it's exactly there. And okay, so when is it done?
18 months
18 month schedule, late spring, early summer to 2022. So that's when
That's a long ass time.
that's a long time, man. So, let's think about that schedule and how we fit into that, right? Blueprint, and it's all here. Everything's drafted. I mean, we could have taken this PowerPoint. I mean, a lot of this is just our stuff, right? Like all the things they want to do. It's all very straightforward. So, except on the Q&A, I don't think anybody asked what happens to the new developers that were just chosen.
Yeah.
How do
Big
they
question
play,
mark.
right? Like,
That would actually be a good question. Maybe you should ask that as an innocent bystander.
well, I can always write an anonymous letter.
Kevin will be
Yeah.
a plant.
Yeah. How do we reconcile what the developer who was just chosen wants to do with this process? How will that happen? Will they start with it and refine it, or will they do something completely different? How does that all relate?
That's a big question. See, Ethan, there's this whole big picture behind all the work you're doing. Now you know how important your work is.
Yeah, because it needs to convince somebody one way or the other eventually.
Yeah, eventually we're going to have to make arguments, and we're going to have to resolve those arguments together with these things, with these apps, because we're writing all the economic formulas. So then, pretty soon, when you start making buildings, we're going to have economic formulas for every building. So you'll go, oh, this one's worth X, this one's worth Y. Now maybe not the impact is totally economic, priority wise. It might be other things that are priorities, not just how much money can be made on a development. And that's again one of the reasons why I think they chose Renaissance and ICO is because they feel like those guys aren't, maybe they don't fit into that greedy developer thing.
I think so. I mean, that was the talk with the community benefits agreement. Hey, Peter, what's your preferred email address? Because you have 3.
Use 3D Tribe.
3D Tribe. Okay. I'm going to send you that file. I just went through it and closed all of them. Can you let me know whether that worked?
Yep, I'll let you know.
Okay, everyone. Thanks so much.
Okay.
I recorded this. I'm gonna save the recording if anybody is crazy enough to want to watch it. Okay.
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 Bye-bye.
Okay. Talk to you guys.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Cheers.